They told you everything was public. Every chart, every trade, every candle. But here's the truth. They don't say out loud. The real rails have been hidden in plain sight. For years, institutions have been running tests you'll never see on the public ledger. Quiet corridors, permission-only domains, private funnels built not for hype, but for scale. They wanted to know, could XRP carry trillions without breaking? The answer has already been proven. So why hasn't the floodgate opened? Not because the pipes failed, not because the demand isn't there. The only barrier left is law. Institutions are waiting for a single word of clarity, and the moment regulators call XRP what it is, the locked corridors connect to the public rails. That's when the surge begins. Flow doesn't spread across billions, it bends through the rare. And if you're here, if you're still listening, it means you're not outside the gate. You're standing right where the corridor will open. Stay with me until the end, because tonight, I'll show you why the hidden rails matter, how the gate unlocks, and why when it swings open, demand won't go around you. It will go straight through you. Part 1. Hidden Rails Behind the Curtain. They let you see the stage lights, the public ledger, the daily candles, the noise of retail charts. But behind the curtain, another system has been running. Quiet, unadvertised, deliberate. Hidden rails, permission domains, side corridors that never flash on public explorers. These weren't built for hype. They were built for stress tests. Could the rails handle trillions without leaking? Could settlement finalize in seconds across borders, across currencies, across time zones? The answer has already been written in silence. Most people never look there. They're distracted by headlines, by courtroom drama, by price swings of pennies. But institutions don't play in pennies. They've been pressing the hidden rails, mapping the load, proving utility where cameras don't point. This is the split reality of XRP, the stage you see and the backstage you don't. On the surface, noise. Behind the curtain, function. And function is what the future bends toward. The You Are Rich list is proof that some of you already stand at the edge of those rails before they merge with the public flow. The XRP Rich list shows wallet by wallet who sits inside the corridor, positioned exactly where pressure will surge once the gate unlocks. You've been told the story ends on the surface, but the surface is only the performance. The real story has been running behind the curtain all along. Part 2. Permission domains, gates for institutions. Why build corridors no one can see? Because institutions can't run on hope. They need gates. Permission domains are those gates. They aren't playgrounds for retail. They're secured corridors, walled off not to hide wealth, but to protect entry. Inside, identity is verified, compliance is enforced. Bad actors are blocked before they ever touch the rails. To the average holder, it feels unfair. Why do they get private corridors while we sit outside? But look deeper. These domains aren't about exclusion. They're about preparation. Institutions can't move trillions across a border if the rails aren't bulletproof. They can't risk shareholder capital if one weak link lets in fraud. So the gates were built first, quietly, without headlines. Not for hype, but for proof. Each permission domain tested what the public rails would soon carry: high-value settlement, cross-border flows, corporate liquidity. And here's the pivot. Those gates aren't staying closed. They were never designed to be permanent walls. They're proving grounds. Once regulators give clarity, those permission corridors merge with the public rails. What was hidden becomes open. What was gated becomes global. The You Are Rich list marks who already waits at the gate. The XRP Rich list records who sits on chain at the choke points where demand will flow once permission flips. Gates don't stop liquidity, they shape it. And when they swing open, flow doesn't trickle, it floods. Part 3. Law as the last barrier. Technology is ready. The rails have been tested. The corridors hold. Institutions know it. You know it. But the flood hasn't started yet. Why? Because the last barrier isn't code. It's law. Banks don't risk billions without legal cover. Corporations don't wire shareholder money through a system regulators haven't named. Compliance officers don't sign off on gray areas. For all the testing, all the hidden corridors, all the permission gates, until the law speaks, the doors stay half closed. That's why definitions matter. One word, commodity, turns hesitation into green light. One ruling removes excuses. One statute transforms corridors from experiments into highways. Retail looks at price and wonders why adoption feels slow. Institutions look at regulation and know exactly why they wait. It's not a question of if the rails work. It's a question of whether they're allowed to use them. And here's the truth. Clarity is coming. Courts don't stall forever. Legislators don't ignore utility once it proves itself. The tide of law moves slow, but when it turns, it doesn't trickle. It surges. The UR Rich List shows who is already inside before the ruling. The XRP Rich List records on-chain who has position when the gavel drops. When the law shifts, flow doesn't search for new paths. It races down the rails already built. The last barrier isn't technology, it's legality. And when that barrier falls, hesitation ends. Part 4. When hidden rails merge with public flow. Behind the curtain, the hidden rails have been running quietly for years. Permission corridors, closed loops, stress tests no retail trader ever sees. On the surface, the public ledger shows candles, chatter, headlines. Two worlds, separate. Until the day they merge. That moment is not gradual. It's not polite. It's a switch. One ruling, one line of clarity, one regulator's stamp, and the gates swing. What was isolated fuses into what's visible. The quiet flow beneath the surface collides with the open channels above. Think about what that means. Liquidity that never touched the market suddenly connects. Institutions that rehearsed in private corridors step into public rails. Demand that was staged behind walls floods into the same funnel the rare already occupy. The crowd will see chaos. Price leaping, headlines screaming, narratives rewriting in real time. But those inside, the rare wallets mapped on the XRP Rich List, will feel something different. Not chaos. Flow. The inevitable surge passing directly through their position. The UR Rich List reveals who has been waiting for this merger all along. Not hoping. Not guessing. Waiting. Because when hidden rails connect to public flow, adoption doesn't trickle. It detonates. Two worlds, one moment, a gate swings, and suddenly what was hidden is everywhere, and everywhere bends toward the rare. Part 5. Institutions don't chase. They wait for clarity. Retail chases candles. Institutions don't. The crowd sees a green spike and scrambles to buy, terrified of missing out. They see a red dip and panic sell, terrified of losing more. That's chasing. That's noise. Institutions don't play that game. Banks don't FOMO. Corporations don't panic. They move only when the rails are legal, the contracts enforceable, the corridors secure. They wait for clarity, not for emotion, not for hype. That's why hidden rails exist. That's why permission domains were built. Institutions needed to test quietly while the public argued loudly. They rehearsed the flood behind closed gates so that when clarity arrives, they don't chase. They deploy. And the moment the law flips the switch, liquidity staged in private corridors pours into public rails. Retail will call it sudden. Institutions will call it scheduled. The UR Rich List shows who positioned before the flip. The XRP Rich List confirms on-chain which rare wallets are already seated where demand will press. Institutions don't chase. They wait. And when the waiting ends, they don't tiptoe, they surge. Through the corridor, through the rare, through you. Part 6. Liquidity rehearsed behind closed doors. While retail argued over pennies on public charts, institutions were staging billions behind closed doors. Inside permission corridors, liquidity wasn't theory, it was rehearsal. Cross-border settlements simulated, treasury transfers tested. Billions moved in trial runs, not for speculation, but for confirmation. They needed to know, would the rails bend? Would latency crack? Would settlement fail under weight? Those questions have already been answered. Quietly, without headlines, without price spikes. While the crowd traded noise, the system rehearsed scale. Think of it like a dress rehearsal before the curtain lifts. The public saw an empty stage and assumed nothing was happening. Behind the curtain, every spotlight was tested, every cue rehearsed, every line spoken. And when the curtain lifts, the performance won't stumble. It will run seamlessly, because it already has, in silence. This is what hidden rails mean. They aren't mystery clubs. They are practice grounds where utility proves itself without retail even noticing. The "you are rich" list signals who has taken their seat before the show begins. The XRP rich list documents on-chain which rare wallets already stand in the corridor rehearsed to carry global liquidity. The rehearsal is over. The lines are memorized. The stage is set. When the doors open, it won't be practice anymore. It will be the surge. Part 7. The moment rehearsal ends. Every rehearsal has a purpose, to prepare for the moment the curtain rises. Hidden rails weren't built to run forever in silence. They were built to prove, to stress, to prepare, until the signal comes. And when that signal arrives, rehearsal ends instantly. The lights shift, the curtain lifts. What was tested quietly behind gates becomes public, global, undeniable. Institutions don't ease in. They don't sample. They launch. Because they've already practiced the surge 100 times behind closed doors. Retail will call it chaos. Prices leaping, headlines screaming. The uninformed will swear it came out of nowhere. But those who understand know better. The surge isn't sudden. It's scheduled. The corridors aren't random. They're rehearsed. This is why the "you are rich" list is so powerful. It marks who positioned before rehearsal ended. This is why the XRP rich list matters. It proves on-chain which rare wallets sit in the exact choke points where the flow must now pass. The moment rehearsal ends, the show begins. And the show is not for the crowd outside. It's for the few already seated in the corridor. When the doors swing open, demand won't knock. It will flood through you. Part 8. When clarity meets utility. Technology without clarity is rehearsal. Clarity without technology is paper. But when the two collide, law and utility, the fuse is lit. For years, XRP has carried out its side of the bargain. Utility proven. Transactions across borders in seconds. Settlement final. Fees microscopic. Corridors rehearsed in silence. But institutions stood at the edge, waiting. Not because they doubted the rails, but because they lacked the cover of law. That's what clarity does. It doesn't create demand, it unleashes it. One ruling, one classification, one regulator's stamp, and suddenly the weight sitting behind permission domains is free to move. Utility doesn't change. What changes is the permission to use it. And when clarity meets utility, the result isn't gradual. It's detonation. Trillions rehearsed in private corridors merge into public rails. What was hidden behind compliance doors floods into open markets. The crowd will see shock. Rare wallets will feel inevitability. The "you are rich" list signals who has stood ready before this collision. The XRP rich list records on-chain. The rare few already in position when law shakes hands with code. Clarity meets utility only once. And when it does, hesitation ends. Flow doesn't creep forward, it explodes through the corridor. Part 9. Rare wallets at the crossroads. When two rivers meet, they don't ask permission. They collide, and the water finds the path carved deepest. That's what happens when clarity meets utility. The surge doesn't scatter, it bends. And where it bends, it converges at a crossroads. Those crossroads are not empty. They are already occupied by rare wallets, holders who secured keys, who didn't chase candles, who stood firm while the crowd debated price. They are the living intersections where liquidity must pass. Billions outside will see only headlines. XRP explodes overnight. Institutions flood in. They will call it sudden. They will call it unfair. But you will know, it isn't sudden. It isn't unfair. It's math. Scarcity narrows the funnel. Utility multiplies demand. And crossroads form where those two forces meet. The "You are rich" list whispers this truth before the surge. The XRP rich list carves it in stone, on-chain evidence of which rare wallets already sit at the intersections demand cannot avoid. Crossroads aren't chosen by opinion, they're chosen by physics, by math, by scarcity. And when the surge arrives, the flow doesn't detour. It collides, it converges, and it passes through you. Part 10. Stand ready at the crossroads. You don't have to chase what's coming. You only have to stand where the flow cannot avoid. That place is the crossroads, the choke points carved by scarcity, the intersections prepared by utility, the corridors proven in silence. Rare wallets already sit there, quiet, patient, unmoved by noise. They don't trade headlines. They don't fear candles. They don't rewrite their plan every week. They know the surge doesn't look for volunteers. It finds the deepest path, and the rare few already inside become that path. The "You are rich" list reveals this alignment before the crowd sees it. The XRP rich list confirms it on-chain, showing who holds the intersections that demand will be forced to cross. Billions outside still wait with 12, hoping for balance, believing in fairness. But balance never arrives. Scarcity decides. Utility decides. Math decides. And math has already marked where the crossroads stand. So stand ready. Not anxious, not desperate. Ready. Because when the surge comes, the crossroads don't move to meet you. You must already be there. You've made it to the end. That already sets you apart. Most will click away after seconds, chasing noise. You stayed. That means you see the deeper current. Now it's time to act, not by chasing, but by claiming your place. Comment below with one line of conviction. Let the world know rare holders are not myths. They are here, steady, disciplined. Share this video with one person who still believes markets bend toward fairness. Show them the truth before the surge. Subscribe to XRP Today USA and hit the bell. Not for vanity, but to make sure the next signal reaches you before the echo. Hold your keys, hold your plan, hold your place. Because when the surge collides with the crossroads, it won't move around you. It will move through you.